Hi, everybody.
Hey, you guys.
Welcome back to another episode from Self Love is the Key Wellness. And I'm here with my co host, Coach Jay, and I'm Cam the Queen.
Yes.
I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. Coach Jay is a certified life coach. And today we want to acknowledge the month of June because it is very important. This month is Pride Month and it's also Men's Mental Health Month. Right. And so I'm so glad that we're in a time where we are so aware of differences, people who have different ideals than we do, people who have different walks of life. We're able to really be all inclusive
hmm
now more than ever before, right? Um, I also want to take some time just to encourage people to feel open and be vulnerable and talk about things that are on their minds, things that are of importance to them.
hmm
Coach Jay, I'm so glad that you're here because I want to give you the floor and start a dialogue about some things that I think will be helpful for our viewers and our listeners, right? And so, my question for you is as a Black man, what do you think are some issues that men come across in terms of seeking out mental health services for themselves?
Like, as a black male,
Mm
growing up, in a predominantly black community, I think that it was just one of those things that was kind of like frowned upon to go to a therapist.
hmm. Mm hmm.
Like, growing up being vulnerable, and that process of, just your parents telling you, like, oh, you fall, you scrape your knee, you don't need to cry, something that hurt you don't have to show your emotion about that. So a lot of that does stem to where men don't want to go to a therapist or go to anyone and really be vulnerable about a lot of different things that we face on a daily basis.
Mm hmm. Mm
So like
hmm.
with that, I think that it's more important for our younger generation that is coming up to, when they start to have those kids, and just people that are having kids today, like that process of going through and making sure that they're showing their son, like, hey, it's okay to be vulnerable, it's okay to tell me how you feel, I want you to tell me how you feel. I don't consider myself to be a weak man at all.
Mm
I am a person that seek out mental health, and I
hmm.
feel like being a life coach myself, like, I think that is very important for men to come and speak to someone about just daily life itself, especially black men. I think it is very important for black men to come and seek help for anything,
Mhm,
whether it's
mhm.
your childhood, whether it's a relationship, whether it's just questions that you have. It's always important for just black men to get together and just have like regular conversations about just life, just different
Yes.
walks of life, and being able to, you know, compare stories in a sense and get advice from other black men, to where that we're able to be successful in life, and not just be so, well, they said that we need to do this, and they said this is how we should be, but of course things are going to be different for me than it would be for someone else
Mhm,
you
mhm,
know so
mhm.
that's just my outlook on that.
Yeah, no, I love it. And, as you were talking, I was thinking about the fact that sometimes it's not about crying, right? What you said is sometimes it's about just being able to vent as a man. They need to have that space to do that. And that's what I hear oftentimes from my male clients, right? There's a lot of pressure in this world that is placed upon men, right? To be providers, to make a lot of money, to be strong, to be protectors,
But
to be able to support, but also not show feelings, but support women or support children as they are allowed to express their feelings. But how can you do that? But you're not also allowed to do that yourself, right?
mhm. So I think it's just more so like, thinking back to, like, back in the olden days. Like, I think it was just that process of, like, men going outside to work and the woman stays at home. So it was like the man doesn't have the room or the capacity to be able to sit back and really think about, like, what is going on day to day. They don't have time to be emotional about it. They just have to figure it out and get to the
Mhm.
next thing to support their families. And I think that little do anyone really know, like men go through just as much as emotions as women do. I don't think that there is one that is more emotional than the other. I believe that we all are different creatures, and some of us are more sensitive than others, and certain things get to us where we need to vent to someone, we need to talk to somebody. And I think that because of that olden time where it was more so like men go out and get the bacon and all of that and come back home and basically do it all over again the next day. And there's no room for men to actually be able to wake up and say, hey, I'm feeling this way today, I don't feel well today, mentally I feel drained. Or because at the end of the day, there was no room for women to, at that time there was no room for women to actually be able to go out to go to work and make as much as men did and things like that. And I think a lot of those ways kind of just
That
adapted
continued.
as
Mhm.
life went on.
Mhm.
It just never stopped. And I think today, I think that there's a lot more men that are able to be a lot more vulnerable with themselves and seek out help and talk to friends and families and therapists and life coaches and pastors and such, like, and be able to really be honest and tell someone exactly what's really going on. I think that as a culture, I think we need to like kind of sort of change the way that we are like portraying ourselves in the world. I just feel like as a culture, like we need to be able to change the way we think and be able to actually have that conversation and introduce new ways of living with our new families in a new today, and be able just to adjust to time today opposed to continuously living in our past in the way that our grandparents were raised or our parents were raised. It's a different time.
Mhm. Mhm. And particularly black men, right, in the black community. It's hard to be a black man. Like I think about I think about my
Sure.
clients, I think about my family members,
Hmm.
my friends. A lot of times they're competing with what's expected of them versus who they actually are as men, right? And sometimes not feeling safe to be who they are without feeling like they're going to be bashed in some way. Like I hear this term a lot on social media, like women talking about men are soft now, or men want flowers now, or they want or sassy. That's the word, sassy now. And I'm like, I feel like that's really it's negative. I feel like that's bullying to use that type of word.
But it
Because
goes back to
usually they're describing right, but usually they're describing a man who is in touch with his emotions and not afraid to say, hey, I don't like how you're talking to me. I don't like what you did right there. I don't like your attitude.
I think that sometimes like also women are also raised in a certain type of way to believe that a man is not supposed to show their emotions. I think that that's also why now it's being termed, the term is sassy, because men are being a lot more vocal about how they feel. It's like
Right.
we should be able to tell you how we feel and don't have to be deemed sassy. It's just me being open and being able to communicate my feelings. And that's just really what it is. I'm not being sassy. I'm just being an adult. Like that's just
Right.
really what it is. I'm telling you how I feel, so where that you can actually understand and not have to assume. you
Mhm.
know
Mhm.
we don't want to assume. When you assume, you making you make an ass out of yourself, and we don't want you to.
Yes.
We don't want you to do that, especially if you're supposed to be my better half or my partner or whomever. I don't want you to assume anything. I want to tell you how I feel. I
Mhm.
want to show up and say, today mentally I am not there today,
Mhm.
and be able to know that it's a safe space.
Mhm.
It's not someone that's going to sit back and say, "Oh, well, they're too sassy for me, so this is not going to work." Because at that point,
Mhm.
if we're too sassy for you, then the relationship is not going to really go anywhere, because you're only
Mhm.
going to look at me as a sassy man, and I'm going to look at this as an unsafe situation.
Mhm. And see, and this reminds me of our podcast series that we did on love as a service,
Yes.
right? It
Yes.
brings me back to that because we talked about the fact that sometimes people go into relationships for the wrong reasons. They go in wanting to be served and wanting to reap all the benefits from the other person and not wanting to reflect on themselves
Yes.
and what they are actually bringing to the relationship.
I think that that's a great point. I think that like people, women, men, whomever, they go into these relationships only wanting to be served, as you said. Like, we all are human beings. We all have feelings. We all, we want to feel the same way that you feel. Like, if I'm going into a relationship with someone and I want to get this person flowers because it's just Tuesday, I want to be able to get flowers on Saturday just because it's Saturday. It doesn't mean that I'm sassy or that anything like that. It's just simply you taking that same type of time out for me that I took out for you because I was just thinking about you. I just love you that much, or I just want to show my love just by buying you some flowers. There's I don't think it's demasculating or emasculating just because of I got flowers.
Okay, a man says, "Hey, I would like some flowers for once."
Mhm.
That doesn't mean that he's sassy.
Right,
At the end of the day, it doesn't mean
right,
that, right?
no,
But I think that really what he's saying is that I want to be considered also. I would like to be doted on also, right? I want someone to be able to hold space for me
right,
and give me some reassurance.
right, right. That's all that it's saying. Like, it's just reciprocation.
Yes.
That's
Mhm.
really what it is. It's just being reciprocated. And I
Mhm.
want you to, like I said, take the time out for me as I'm taking out for you. And I
Mhm.
just want our relationship to be positive on both ends and safe on both ends.
Right. Another issue that I have seen a lot in the black community with black males in particular is you have some black men who are raised by single women,
Hmm.
and these single women put a lot of pressure on their sons to step up and be the man of the house or to take the role of a pseudo spouse, husband, boyfriend, if you will.
Hmm.
And so when that happens, this man, he grows up parentified and also feeling like he has to make up for his father who is not in the picture and who's not even there to give him a good example of what a man is supposed to be.
Hmm.
So he is left to the wolves really to figure that out for himself and also figure out how to take care of his mom's emotions or whatever her emotional needs are
Hmm.
because she doesn't have anyone, and that can cause a whole litany of issues with this man. He grows up always concerned about his mother, right, or his sisters, which is not a bad thing when it's done healthily, correctly. But if it is too much, we call it enmeshment in therapy. If it is too much closeness to the point that the child is not getting what they need, right,
I
even as an adult.
I think that, like, there's a lot of men, especially in the black community, that were in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just growing up, making sure that the household was taken care of, or making sure that their siblings were doing their homework, or ate, or got in from school okay, or whatever the case may be. Just making sure that their siblings were taken care of, and at the same time making sure that their parent or supposed to be parent was taken care of as well, their mom, grandma, whomever. And I think that those men, they grow up with that process of not really understanding how to go through life and be vulnerable, because once again, there's still no one there to actually show them how to be vulnerable. Let me tell you how I feel, because they're put in that role of being the parent.
Right, right. And then so in their mind, so the reason why that happens is because when you're parentified, you're taught that your feelings don't matter.
Hmm.
You're taught that your feelings are the last priority and everyone else's feelings and needs go before your own,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? And now if you're a parent parenting a child, that makes sense, right? Because you're not supposed to go to your child and tell them that you're depressed or
Right,
that you're stressed out or that you're worried about how to pay the bills. A parent is not supposed to go to their child and say that, right? But if you have a man who is a child growing up in that same role with his parent, he grows up thinking that he has to
figure it
find
out.
a way
Yeah.
to problem solve and to help his mother or to help his siblings as if he is the parent. So it
Yep.
teaches him that when he grows up, there's never going to be space for him to ask for help or for him to say that he's overwhelmed or for him to say that he doesn't know what to do because he's always been put in that role of having to be that fixer, that provider, that head of household, if you will.
I think
That's a rough life.
that it very much so is a very rough life. I think that
Mhm.
like, it's like you list all of those things, and then you have that man that grow up in the world, and now he's faced at life, or faced with life at 25, trying to figure out how is he supposed to navigate his emotions and his feelings and such. And it's like I can't reach out to therapy because I I can't talk about my feelings. My feelings are last, so I can't
Mhm.
I can't
Yes.
talk
Yes,
about
and that's true, but subconsciously men are learning that.
it.
A lot of young men are learning that subconsciously. We're changing that. There's a shift towards a different direction. I'm seeing a lot of that with the new generation coming up, like with the Gen Zers. They are much more aware about mental health issues. They are much more courageous when it comes to speaking their truth, discussing how they truly feel. And that's beautiful, right? But think about this. As a young man growing up, maybe your late teens, early 20s, you are just now figuring out life. But for some reason, society says that you should automatically know how to be a man. But what teenager or young adult does, right?
I mean, and then also think about the fact that if no one is there teaching them how to be a man,
Mhm.
you got that on top of you as well. So now the
Mhm.
world is telling you you're supposed to be a man, but you don't know what a man looks like. You don't
Right.
know what
We
a man
need time
does.
to mature. We all need time to mature, right? Because as I said that, I'm thinking about my young adult clients, and I used to work with a lot of teenagers, my teen male clients who are thinking at age 19, well, I need to be making money so I could help my family pay the bills. I need to have a car already. I need to have cash flow coming in. And I'm like, who told you that at 19 that's where you should be doing that, providing for your whole family at 19? You're still maturing at this point. I would expect you to be still in school or learning a trade, right? Or an apprenticeship, building your way up to that, not able to just come out of high school just guns blazing, able to provide for everybody. That doesn't even make sense, you know?
To be honest, I think back to like when I was like 18, 19,
Mhm.
20, and I just think about like me really not knowing myself,
Mhm.
just still trying to figure out who I am,
And that's
like,
normal at that
and
age.
to think
Yeah.
about like that process of having to make sure that my household was taken care of, or my parents household was taken care of, add that stress on top of that, that's a lot of stress for any young man to have to walk around with. And then unfortunately there's a lot of teenagers that are deemed adults but still immature at mind, and they're having children, and now they're having to figure out how to take care of that child, on top of taking care of their household, on top
Mhm.
of figuring out who they are, on top of, it's
Mhm.
just like so many different things. And then you start to think about all this stuff that a man is supposed to be. It's like, well, who is telling me what am I supposed to be, who I should
Mhm.
be? Like, we all
Mhm.
are different. There's
Mhm.
no ideal man that everyone is supposed to emulate. You know what I'm saying? There's no man, there's no rules to this.
And that feeds into the stereotype that, if a man's not making money, he has no value, right? Which is not true. If he has a plan and a purpose, he does have value. But I want to speak to your point with that you were saying about these young men not having anyone to look up to. That's because it's so important as a parent, whether you're a single parent or not, to make sure that your male child, has male role models to look up to. So if you don't have a man in the home, find a mentor, a
Mhm.
coach, a pastor, a teacher, a neighbor, a grandparent, an uncle, a big brother. Find someone, some positive male figure who can be in your child's life consistently so they are able to see what being a man really is
Mhm.
and what it's like. And so they're able to understand that there are levels to this, that there are steps that you take, that you're not going to just come out, like I said, come out knowing what to do at
Successful,
18,
yeah.
19, 20 years old.
Just being successful at 18.
No.
You making six figures at 18. Like, I mean, there's people that do that. Like, I mean, there's people in the world that are able to do that, but that's not for the everyday person.
Right. That's not the norm. That's
That's
the
not the norm.
exception. Right.
Exactly. So it's
Mhm.
like more so you have to be, like you said, have that as a parent. whether you just want to make sure that you have that strong male role model in your son's life, regardless of anything. I don't care if the father is in and out. You still want someone that is consistent. You want someone
Yes.
to be able to look at someone and say, okay, well, he was there my whole life. No, that's not my dad, that's my uncle. But my
Mhm.
uncle showed me exactly what are the steps I need to take to be successful in life as a man. Not
Mhm.
with, like,
Mhm.
money and things of that sort. It's just being successful as a man,
Right,
you
being a
know?
man of honor, of character, right? Being a man who has morals and values and knows how to respect other people
Yes.
and how to communicate effectively how they feel and how to hold space for other people, right? We have to make sure we're teaching our boys emotional maturity so that when they get out into the world, they're able to take constructive feedback. They're able to take a no. They're able to take a loss without becoming defensive, without being violent, right? Without being a sore loser, right? Those are things that you learn because you're exposed to that through working with other people and through having role models in your life, role models and people who can show you the way. Mhm.
I think going and putting your son into sports and things like that will really help
Yes.
with that process of your child understanding, in a sense, like, the real world. Like, you're not going to always win that game. Every game
Yes.
you play, you're not going to win.
Yes.
There's always going to be someone that maybe a little bit better than you.
Yes.
There's just that's just life. We don't have control over who we are and where we are, and how much more room we need to grow. But at the end of the day, like, we're taking the steps that are needed to get to that place, and that's what's most important.
Mhm. Mhm. Yes, sir. Mhm. Well, I really, really enjoyed this conversation, that we're having. Is there any other thoughts that you have that you want to add to this before we end today?
I guess my final word would be, men, be vulnerable.
It's okay to be vulnerable. Yes.
Yes,
Mhm.
men, be
Mhm.
vulnerable. It's
Yeah.
okay.
And it doesn't mean that you are
Weak
sassy.
or weak.
Yes, it doesn't mean that you're weak for
Yeah,
expressing how you feel. Mhm.
yeah.
Yes. Thank you all. See
Bye,
you next
guys.
time. Bye.